Okay. Hi. Welcome, everybody. This week I have my friend Christina. She's a multi passionate entrepreneur with a heart to make a massive positive impact in the lives of people she serves and leads. From real estate to health and business coaching, she endeavors to support, encourage, and equip others as they live out their best lives. And I can attest to all of that. She's she wants us to live our best lives.
Absolutely.
So, forgive us. We are going to be talking about a serious subject, but Christina and I like to laugh. So, we've been laughing through this whole thing. Laughter is good medicine. That is for sure. So, and I'm glad that we're at a point in our life that we can laugh about this serious subject, right?
Yes, definitely.
All right, Christina, what are you going to share with us today?
Hmm. Let's talk about death and
Okay.
loss and grief
And, and how to recover from all that.
and how to recover. The most important
The
part.
most important part. We won't leave you guys hanging. We're not just gonna dump it all on you. Back up the dump truck, as my therapist would say, and then just leave. We're not gonna do that.
Yes. Yes.
We'll give you some resources at the end. Good.
Yes, definitely. Share some tips, some strategies to keep moving forward when you've experienced a lot of loss. And I think that is a big thing on my heart right now because it is so recent and I've experienced so much loss
Yeah.
in a short period of time. And I want to just release hope to people because it can be really heavy
Hmm.
to go through a lot of loss.
Yeah.
You want me to just jump in with the losses and
Yes. Just, I mean, there's no easy way to ease in. No, just jump into the deep end. Do it.
all right.
Tell
Let's
us
go
all about
back
it.
to 2020, if you will.
I don't want
And
to. Nobody wants to.
yeah, I'll try to keep it condensed because it is kind of a lot. And I don't want anybody to get depressed. And I'm coming from a place of, yeah, it's about hope. It
Yeah.
might not sound like it at first because I want you to understand where I've been and
Right.
how I've gotten to where I am now.
Yes.
So that's important.
That's right.
So in 2020, I'm trying to think of the exact month. I'm thinking it was beginning of September, end of
Mm.
August, beginning of September.
Mhm.
My mom ended up going to the hospital. Her and my dad, it's like they were taking turns going to ER a couple times by ambulance. And this
My
particular
goodness.
time, um, they kept running tests and things like that to try to figure out what was going on with my mom. And at this time they did scans of her brain and they found that she had multiple tumors in her brain.
Mm.
And what we didn't know, they never gave us a number.
Oh,
I think they
geez.
didn't want to. But there were multiple, and there were multiple tumors throughout her body. I didn't know that at the
Mhm.
time. So she had had cancer years before, and they had told her, which I never heard that part either. I was at all appointments but one that where they gave this information that if the cancer were to return, it would show up on her liver. And
Oh,
it was a cancer in her eye. She had a little tumor at the very back of her eye. They did this incredible surgery, like the best surgeon in the world was
okay.
in San Francisco and did this surgery. And so she was starting to have issues and they found it. And then when we left that hospital, they sent her home on hospice and said she probably had 2 to 3 weeks to live.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, how do you deal with that? And
That's enough trauma right there.
it is, it really is.
Jeez.
And, but my mom's a fighter. Oh my goodness, she's so strong. And she ended up living 6 weeks
Oh.
after that. Doing decently well until the last few days, really, is
Mhm.
like we really saw a massive slowdown.
Uh-huh.
And she had been at my house a few days before they came to visit and stay with us for the weekend, and that we saw such a massive decline. And she liked to put essential oils on at night.
Okay.
And so she asked me to do that. And that's when I saw tumors like this big protruding from her skin and her back, her chest, her stomach
Oh.
area. They were like all over. It was all I could do to put the oil on her and
Right.
not start just bawling.
Right.
And she had lost so much weight. So she ended up passing. I was right by her side
Mm.
and she waited. Her and my dad were so in love. and
Mm.
she waited till he went to bed. And she wasn't coherent at that time. She was just laying on the bed in the living
Yeah,
room. And as soon as he went to bed, it wasn't even 5 minutes later that she was
really.
gone.
Mm.
And I was just holding her hand. I was talking to her, and she left. And then that was October 2020. And then helped my dad through a lot of things. February 22, my dad didn't ever wake up.
Oh,
They had moved in with us, thankfully. And so I feel like I got bonus time with my parents, even though
yes.
I lost them, I feel like too early. My mom, they
Yeah.
said 2 to 3 weeks. We had her 6 weeks. That's
Right.
bonus time.
Yes.
My dad, he had cancer as well. They both had stage 4 cancer, but he was doing relatively good. He
Hmm.
was lacking a lot of energy the day before he passed, or the day he passed, because we don't know exactly what time. But he didn't get up that next morning, and I waited. I had conference calls, and so around 10 o'clock, I'm like, this is really not normal. And then, in the back of your mind, it's like he might not be alive anymore.
Right.
But I went in, and so I found him, and I was the only one home.
Mm.
But I'm so grateful that he was so peaceful.
Yeah,
He looked
right.
so good. He was just laying on his side with his hands in his head like this.
Oh,
So
gosh.
peaceful. He looked so good. My mind had a hard time believing that he was gone. But my dad's not that heavy of a sleeper. Like, I pushed his shoulder,
Right.
and he was really stiff at that point. So obviously
Yeah.
he'd
He
been
had
gone
passed.
for a while.
Right.
But he looked so good, Laura. Like
Right.
like his skin, it was completely different from my mom.
That's hard to that's probably hard for your brain to reconcile.
Yeah,
Oh.
it really was. And so that was devastating. I'm a daddy's girl. I love both my parents very much.
Mm.
And it was really, really hard. And so that was February 2022, last year. And then we fast forward to November 2022, and my 25-year-old nephew, and I promise the story gets better, but right now we got to lay the foundation
That's
for the
right.
grief.
That's right. This is, well, you know what? This is real life.
It
It's
is.
sometimes it's one right after the other. And it's so that's okay. That's okay. We got to hear this stuff first.
Yeah, and at least I'm smiling through it.
Yes.
I was not at the time, trust me.
That's right. I
A lot of
yes.
healing has taken place.
That's right.
Um, so my nephew, he was 25 years old, and he had to decide. He had Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And typically boys don't live too late in life with that
Okay.
disease. And he had gone to the hospital, wasn't feeling good, and they wanted to do a procedure, but it was very risky. And if they did it, he probably would never be able to go home again. He'd have to go into a home, a nursing
Oh,
facility, because of the
jeez.
type of machine that he would be on for the rest of his life. And at that
Okay.
point, he was not on machines. And
Hmm.
so he had to decide if he was going to go through with the procedure or simply be removed from the machines at the hospital that he was on, keeping him alive and breathing.
Oh gosh.
And he couldn't even talk at that point because the machine,
Yeah.
it was down, getting air into his lungs. But they asked him multiple times to confirm that was what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to be removed from the machines. Like, you want to be removed from the machines? And he was like, yes, very clear.
Mm.
So
Yes.
that was devastating. We went up, of course, there in Idaho, and we watched him when they turned the machines off. It was one of the most heart wrenching things I've ever had to see or experience in my life. And it wasn't just, as if it's not enough watching my nephew die, but
Right.
his mom and his brother,
Right.
just their hearts breaking in front of me.
Yes.
And after losing my mom, losing my dad, I could not fully process this loss that I'm watching. I mean, I
Right.
broke down weeping once they confirmed,
Right.
yes, he was indeed gone.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And then a few weeks later, my father-in-law passed. He had been on hospice for 2 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then a couple weeks later after that, we had to make a decision to put our dog down, who we've had since we've been married,
Oh my
in
god. Wait,
2011.
how are you not still in bed in the fetal position
Yeah,
right now?
I know. And just for the sake of understanding how big this was for the dog,
Yeah.
he was my daytime buddy. I work from home. He
Yeah.
was always with me in real estate when I'd go show properties when the weather was cool enough. He's in the car with me. He
Oh.
went everywhere. And I don't have children that I've given birth to. So
Yeah.
raising him from a puppy and just being with
Oh.
him all day was,
Yeah.
I wept in the vet's office when he was finally gone, and just
Yeah.
it's like my heart broke all over again, as if it
Right.
hadn't broken enough already
Right. You
from
barely had it.
2020.
Yeah, you barely had any pieces back together probably before
Yeah.
they're like, let's throw this on it too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is, well, geez, thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah, it's a
horrible.
lot.
It is a
I feel a bit
lot.
of the weight of it, just kind of reliving some of it. And
Yes, yes.
it led to a little bit of a breakdown in
What?
January of this year.
Mm. So what did that
I
look like to you?
um it wasn't pretty, but I'm so grateful that it was not long lived. I will
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
because it could have been days, weeks, months,
Yeah.
and it was like something snapped, and I
Yes.
was separated from my emotions, is what it felt like. My
Okay.
husband and I have a great relationship. I love my husband. My husband loves me. We get along really well. And I started screaming at him.
Uh,
And I don't scream at my husband, but he was like, what is going on? I'm like, oh, and I'm screaming, but
Oh,
inside I felt nothing.
oh my
I
gosh.
didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel depressed. I didn't feel anywhere in between. I didn't feel like hitting him. I didn't feel like running. I didn't feel like standing, sitting, nothing. I've never felt like that in my life, to
Right.
feel nothing.
It's interesting that but that you yelled out that you were angry.
Yes. And that was
That's
strange
interesting.
to me too. I'm like, where is that even coming from? I
Right.
feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he was just, the look on his face was like shock, like, what is happening right now? Who are you?
Right.
And he's like, are you going to hit me? I'm like, oh. And my eyes were open while I'm screaming this, but I just close them. I don't know why I do that right now,
Right.
retelling it. But he's like, why don't you go in the room? I mean, it was just bad.
Oh my God.
And he's literally just standing there. He's doing nothing. It's something he said just triggered me to snap, and it wasn't even anything bad. I can't tell you
Right.
what it is because I don't remember,
Right.
but it was like it came out of nowhere, but it really was just a building up of all the things.
Mm.
It really was.
Oh my gosh.
And I reached out to someone I trust and I know who loves me, and I'm like, I think I need help. I just screamed at Eric.
Oh my goodness. And did they know that that's not what you normally
Yes.
do?
Yes, they
Uh,
know that. And they're
yeah.
like, oh my goodness. And I just explained, like, in a brief text, like it was
Yes.
no longer than this, what had
Yeah.
just happened. And I said, do you think I need to see a counselor? And she recommended that I reach out to a mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, who lives on the other side of the country, but thank God for Zoom.
Thank God. I'm telling you, we're so, yes, like there's so many good things that have come out of it. That's for sure. We all
Yes,
learned how to use it to our advantage.
that's for sure. Definitely. And I reached out to her, briefly explained what had happened. She's like, okay, I want to get you in right away. I have one opening tomorrow. Was it the same day? I don't even remember, but it was super
Wow.
quick. It was within 24 hours. She got me in. We had
That's
a Zoom session,
amazing.
90 minutes. And that was truly the beginning of my freedom and my healing.
That's
And
amazing.
what I realized, she said during the session, shout out to Tina Hester, by the
That's
way.
right. That's right.
um, During the session, she said, we're going to address where this anger is coming from. And I was like, what anger?
What anger? What are you even talking about? Yes, I
Yeah.
yelled at my husband, but it's none of your business.
I'm like,
What?
I
I'm
don't
not angry.
understand. I'm not angry. I told you I felt nothing, but her as a counselor and a professional
That's
and
right.
focused on that healing from the inside, she recognized there was
Yes.
anger there, and I didn't, but I would have never told you I was angry because I didn't
Yes.
feel angry. But back in, the day or two before, I was
Yeah.
literally screaming at my husband saying I'm angry.
You know,
So
and
somehow,
I want to touch on that because,
yeah,
there's so many times that even our body, right, is holding things,
yeah,
back aches, neck aches, or whatever, that we're like, that then we go, hey, I think something's wrong.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
wait,
so true.
I think I'm having anxiety, or I think I'm angry, or I think I'm, you know how sometimes you feel like you don't want to say something to somebody, but then your body's like, okay, well, then I'll just hold on to all that pain.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad you brought that up because I do the same thing with stress. I'll
Hmm.
be like, oh, I'm not stressed, but my body will tell me the truth and it will
Yes.
show up somewhere in my body. I'm like, okay, I am stressed. Like, I don't feel it in here, like in my heart or even in my
Right.
mind.
In your chest or
But
whatever. Yeah.
I think that's a part of how we're wired just to protect ourselves.
Oh, I definitely think it's like a protection thing. That's our as humans, that's our first instinct. Is I learned this that the brain's first instinct is to say that seems like danger.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. When people say, why do you think negatively? It's like, well, your brain says that seems like danger and they tries to protect you. And you have to tell your
Yeah.
body, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I give my massage therapist something to do every month. Okay. She'll be like, how's everything? I'll be like, I bet you'll find stuff in my lower back because that's where I keep my stress.
Yeah. So there's a lot of tension right here.
There
Oh, yeah.
it is. Oh
The
my
body
goodness.
don't
So
lie.
so she knew, so she recognized that you were holding on to some anger, even though you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I
But I
feel
mean, obviously,
nothing.
clearly I wasn't, right?
I
I
mean,
had
I'm
that.
dead inside, but I'm fine. Sorry. Sorry. See, I told you guys we were gonna laugh about this.
Yeah, we are.
Here comes
Well,
the
we have
healing.
to.
Here comes the healing part.
Yeah, the healing part. Yes. So she walked me through her process of
Okay.
just asking questions. And what she does that I appreciate is that she gives you questions to ask God. That's
Okay.
how she does a lot of it. And
Uh-huh.
that way things come up that aren't necessarily at the forefront of our mind. They're
Yes.
back here, right? They're filed away. They're
Right.
protected under the blanket or in the box right here.
Yes.
So we're
Right.
not so that we're safe. And it was an hour and a half. I was like, man, that was intense. And it was so freeing. Like
Wow.
she walked me through forgiving people. Okay, who do you need to forgive for this? And I would have said, oh, nothing until she asked the question and it came out.
Right.
Oh, I guess I need to forgive them again.
Right.
Because that's a process,
It is
forgiveness
a
is a
process.
process.
Look, this is not the only episode we're talking about forgiveness.
I bet
I'm telling you. Yep. Because it is a process.
it is.
It's a process. We have to do it over and over and over. We don't have
Yeah.
to forget. We don't have to go back. We don't have to let them do it again, but
Yeah.
it's a process. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
And that and I'm gonna talk to that where you said you don't have to let them do it again. I had coming out of that session, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I've got to put some healthy boundaries in place.
Okay.
Some specific phone calls, not answering the phone.
Wow.
Specific being around people, not doing it, even if it's family, because I needed to create a safe space to heal in.
To heal. Wow. Let me ask you about that. Is that something that that you normally did? Because for some people listening, setting boundaries sounds scary, especially if you've never set boundaries before. And not answering phone calls. I remember you telling me about that. You just didn't answer those calls and nobody really harassed you. I think you were kind of protected, right? I feel like
Yeah.
it just didn't they just they probably needed you, or not needed you, but wanted you. Right? They wanted you to maybe solve a problem. How did you feel? Was that something you normally did? Had you ever set boundaries?
Not in this same way. I'm
Okay.
pretty good with healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
Ask my stepdaughter.
Okay.
We had a conversation about that one day, and it was so funny. I said something about, I'm pretty good at setting healthy boundaries and setting boundaries. She goes, yeah, you are.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. But that's how we create safe spaces for
Yes.
ourselves, for others. With boundaries, we show people how they can and cannot treat us.
Yes.
And if we're in a place like I was, where I really needed to heal, where I didn't have a lot of motivation to get up in the morning and get out of bed,
Right.
right? I could work from my phone. So I would lay in bed in the morning, sometimes 2 or 3 hours till my
Oh,
back
okay.
hurt because my
Okay.
back doesn't like that. And I'm just like, okay, this is not my normal me. I'm a motivated person. I'm a get it
Right.
done person, and things are not getting done.
Right.
Um, and so uh so setting boundaries, to answer your question,
Yeah.
I've done it before, not so much in not consistently not answering phone calls and
Okay.
or texts. I don't
Yeah.
normally I don't find myself in situations where I have to do something
Uh-huh.
like that. But I remember mentoring kind of something similar to my mom, and somebody calls on the phone. She's like, "Oh, I don't want to talk." I'm like, "Don't answer it."
Right.
Somebody's at the door. Don't answer it.
Yeah. Did you know you
Don't
can
have
do that?
to.
Right.
You
Did
don't
you
have
know
to. It's
you can do that?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have
Sometimes
to answer the call. I know it's sometimes like, why did you answer the phone if it doesn't even sound like you would want to talk to me? I mean, I feel bad. Yeah, and yes, and that is a learned behavior you do have to practice healthy boundaries because a
yes.
lot of people and I wrote that down so maybe we'll put some sort of a link or something in the show notes to help people with boundaries because
Mm,
if you've never set boundaries before, it's not easy to do
yeah.
because the first thing that's going to happen is people are going to push back on that and that's okay
And
because
sometimes it's within yourself. You'll feel guilty
right,
because
of
you're setting a
course.
boundary. Like, well, I feel guilty about that.
Right, of course. But
Okay.
you said you needed to heal, so that's what you needed to do. I love it.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
good.
Yeah. So that I definitely did that. And the good thing is it worked.
Oh, good.
It worked to have that space. I pulled out of not showing up at different things like that. I just needed time. And for some people, isolation's not going to be good. But
Right.
for me, I needed some semblance of isolation
Hmm.
to just protect all the input that had been coming and the people that had just been take.
Okay.
Because I got to a point where I can't handle anybody asking me for anything else right now. Don't ask
Right.
me for anything. Don't ask me for any item. If we're getting rid of it, you want it. I need the taking to stop because I felt like I had lost so much
Oh.
already.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, and some people do things differently because my sister took everything and threw it in storage so she didn't have to deal with my parents' home.
Yeah.
And then later we started going through but not when you're in the middle of grief, it sometimes you're not making the right decisions or you're not making the decisions you may make later. You're
Yeah.
not in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've done that with our stuff. So my parents left everything in the house and everything in it to me. So it was a lot to go through, and there were things I just was not ready to let go of at that time. Well, before we just relocated from California to
Uh-huh.
Las Vegas, and so we had a huge yard sale. At that point, I was ready to get rid of some more
Yes.
things. I
Yes.
still have some things I'm holding on to. I'm not ready, and I just told my husband a couple days ago, okay, I'm ready to get rid of that
Yeah.
couch that we've been holding on to. I'm ready to let that go now. But it
Hmm.
takes time and
It
that's
does.
okay. And it's
Right.
like give yourself permission if you find yourself grieving, and it could be anything, any kind
Right.
of loss. It could be loss of a person, a job, an opportunity, anything that any not just grief, but any kind of loss, to give
Yeah.
yourself space to process
Yes. That's really
and
good.
don't rush it. And one of the best advice I ever received is that don't compare your grief to anybody else's.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
That has stuck with me. I wish I could remember who said it, but
Okay.
somebody said that when I lost my mom, and it has stuck with me through every single
Every
loss.
single one. Yeah.
Because here I am, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and I see another entrepreneur and business owner. They lose their mom and they're right back into work like maybe a
Right.
month later. And here I was over a year later and still not, but our situation's not the same.
Right. You're
We're not
different
the same
people.
people.
Right. So that's a really good tip. Yes. Don't compare your grief to anyone else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, comparison gets us in a lot of trouble, and no matter
Yes,
what area it
it
is.
does. Yes, it does. No matter what it is. Yes.
Yep.
I should be this, I should be that. And, social media doesn't help, of
Yeah.
course, because we're all on our best behavior most of the time on social media, right?
Yes.
We put our highlight reel out there. Yes, no, you can't. You have no idea that person, for all you know, they went home and cried.
Yeah.
They were, you have no idea how they were functioning, but I get it. Yep. Don't compare.
Yeah. Yeah. So that has really helped me throughout the entire process. And then after having the session with Tina, putting up those healthy boundaries
Uh-huh.
very much helped me continue that healing process. And one of the most impactful things, there were many, many impactful things out of our
Okay.
session together. But the one thing that ended up coming out, it was towards the end after we had already dealt with many different things,
Right.
is that the anger actually did come from somewhere. And I could have never
Oh.
verbalized it, could have never told you. But what came out is I was angry at God because I did not get to tell my dad goodbye.
Oh.
And
Mm.
that was huge.
Yeah.
And as
That,
soon as I said it, like verbalized that,
yeah.
this is what it went like.
You were crying, sobbing.
Oh yeah, it was the ugly, like I need a box of tissues, not just a tissue
Tissue.
cry.
Yeah.
It was really, really bad, but I was really, that's where that anger, like that screaming, that's
Yeah.
where it was coming from.
Right.
But I could have never said that. And that's
Yeah.
where we don't heal alone.
Right.
We
Yes.
really don't.
No.
And we need people,
Mhm.
and we need to hear people's stories, which is why I'm pretty passionate about sharing my story,
Right.
because I want people to understand they're not alone.
Right. They're
You're
not.
not the only one who's gone through this. It may not look how like what I've gone through, but just know that I've gone through some deep stuff, and
Yes.
that you will, and that there's a way out of that pit that it feels like you just
Mhm.
got sucked down into.
Right. That's the biggest thing because when my mom died, that was the first person in our family that was really close to me. I've lost grandparents and stuff, but didn't live with us,
Yeah.
so not super close. And it was just so devastating. But to hear other people's stories, I was like, oh, this is quote unquote normal, what I'm feeling, that I want to just curl up in bed, or that it's okay that I'm laughing right now, or, and then I'm crying again. It's
Yeah.
those things. It's like, yeah, all that's okay. All that's normal. That grief isn't linear. We're up, down, and all around to, you cry about it one second, you laugh about it the next, and all that stuff. And it's okay.
Yeah, I'm
It,
glad you said that it's not linear, because when you see the graphs, whether it's straight across or even
yes.
just a circle, they're like, oh, the stages of grief.
No.
It's gonna be more like playing pool or a ball in a
In a
pinball
pinball
machine.
machine.
Like
Yes.
ding, 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 you keep going all over.
That's what I have seen it likened to, is a ball in like a pinball machine, but
Yeah,
then the box, which is grief, gets bigger, and so then the ball doesn't hit the edge as often,
yeah,
and so it's a little easier to go through life, because like most days I don't sob about my mom. I've learned how to live with it, with the grief and all that. And then
yeah.
there's other days where I'm like, well, not really. Especially in my last season that I've gone through, I'm like, well, I want my mommy.
Right.
We still want our mommies.
Yes,
I don't care how old we are.
absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I say one of our pastors because,
Yeah.
living in two different states and,
Right.
through the
Right.
years, one of the pastors said, I think it was him, grief is love. It just looks different.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's such a good perspective for somebody who's in the midst of grief
Yeah.
and loss, and then people will say things like, well, you should be over that by now, or you
Oh,
need to move forward, or just trust God. And those are well-meaning people when they're
yes. Yes.
saying those things, but for
Yes.
someone who's in the midst of grief, and so what if we said, I'm in the midst of love,
Oh, my
I'm in the
goodness.
midst of missing, loving this person.
You didn't have the time to give them all the love you wanted to. I know that one of the things I didn't like to hear was they're in a better place. And I was like, I said, I don't care. Wasn't done. I wasn't done with them.
Right.
I just,
Right.
I wasn't done.
You're
So
like,
stop.
hold on. This is about me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that she's in a better place, because I have to tell you, right after that, the sky was purple every day after my mom died. For I don't know
Wow.
for how many days, and purple was her color. I don't know how many days people were sending me sunsets from everywhere going, your mom's painting in purple again. And I just was like going with it. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm not done. I want my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that for anybody who's listening who maybe has gone through grief or hasn't, and this is please take this as a learning
Yes,
opportunity to
exactly.
hear from people.
We're not trying to shame you. We're trying
No.
to, yes. I think you and I talked about it. And I don't know if that's where you are in your notes, but we talked about things that we needed when we were grieving, right?
Yeah.
I know you and I were talking about this, and one of the things was you talked about it briefly when you were saying how people were taking things and you couldn't even function, you couldn't even make decisions. And one of those was eating. Now, it's not like I didn't have other adults in the house, but I was usually the one who was making these decisions, and I mostly needed someone to feed me. Preferably if I was laying on in the fetal position, just work food into my mouth somehow so I could continue to live.
Yeah.
One of the things I really found valuable was friends who texted me and said food is being dropped off at 5:30. They
Yeah.
didn't come in. They had the delivery service bring it over. I didn't have to talk to anybody, and my family ate. And we ate and I ate because it arrived at my door. And tell me about that. What did you feel? Was that valuable to you? Did you have people
Oh
doing
yeah.
that or did you not? Or
Yeah, definitely valuable if people provided food. And if they didn't provide food, I got gift cards to DoorDash,
oh yeah,
gift certificates to different places, gift
yeah,
cards. And that's super helpful when someone has experienced one or multiple losses
right.
to take some responsibilities off their plates. One of the worst things that people can say, and again, no judgment,
Yes.
it's because it's coming from a good place, is that let me know how I can help. I'm here
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
I'm not in a position to tell you how to help me. I need you to just do it. I couldn't have verbalized that at the time, but now
No.
looking back, right?
Right.
Hindsight being 2020, just
Yes.
take that initiative. I'm dropping food off. I am going to, and some people want to be in your presence. Like, I'm coming over.
Right.
Okay. How about maybe not?
Oh yeah, and that was hard because I had very good friends who were like, "I'm coming over," and I'd be like, "Please don't," because I I when I think back, I think about I almost was embarrassed because I was like such a wreck because I wanted to just like fall on the floor. I mean, my sister fell on the floor crying in Hobby Lobby, okay, when we were trying to plan my mom's funeral. And I was
Oh,
like, and
yeah.
people were looking at her, and I was like, just work around her because
Yep.
this is grief. This is what her
Yeah.
grief looks like. We couldn't handle picking out decorations for her funeral, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that that's important. That don't ask somebody what can I do? That's something I learned is just do something for them.
Yeah.
Don't even ask them. Maybe you can say, "Would you want chocolate or vanilla?"
Right.
Nothing
Super
else.
simple.
Nothing else. No other decision. Just say, just bring them. How many people are at your house? 5? Great. I'm bringing you 5 5
Yeah.
cheeseburgers. I don't know. It's just something, you know.
Yeah.
You
And
know
I
what?
think that's really good, is asking those very specific but simple questions.
Yes.
Don't make the person think a whole lot. They're not in the right mind. If and some people leading up, let's say the funeral's like in 2 weeks. Oh, you get all this support in 2 weeks, and after that, everybody's
Yes.
gone on with their life, and you're still in the midst of your grief.
Oh. Yes,
And
that's
some one
really
of the
hard.
best things I think people can do is like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I love you. I'm
Yeah.
praying for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of dinner Friday night. I'm going to give you a gift. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
we could think beyond the graveside service, the celebration of life, the
Yeah.
funeral, whatever it is, the memorial service, whatever it is that you want to call it, or how you do it, but the person is still in the midst of some really deep stuff
Right.
after that service. And I mean, I've been guilty when I going through this.
Sure.
I told one of my friends, my good friends, I said, I owe you an apology.
Mm,
And she's like, what for?
right.
I said, because when your dad died,
Oh, right.
I didn't
You didn't
keep
know.
checking on you.
Right.
I didn't know because nobody was talking about it like we're talking about. And that's why that's the place that I want people to feel and hear
Yes.
that heart, that what I'm
Yes.
coming from. It's not to judge anybody. It's not to condemn anybody in any
Right.
way. It
Right.
is to offer an education so that we can all do better when
Yes.
someone's going through something.
You know, and that's
Um,
the thing is not having had such a tragedy. I didn't know how to tell people how to help me.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this. And so I still, to this day, think to what I needed. And when my friend's parents die or whatever, getting to that age where my friends' parents are dying or something, saying, even in a card, saying, I have no words. I'm just so sorry. Because to say, like, they're in a better place or these things, like, I know it's well meaning. And maybe I said those things in the past, but now I know from my own perspective that that didn't feel helpful to me. So why don't I learn from this? And that's our heart, everybody. That
Yes.
learn from this and move forward with that, and just go pick up dinner. And you don't have to cook, because that's the thing is, those meal trains are amazing, but I didn't always want to cook. But
Yeah.
if somebody wants to drop off a casserole, I'll take it, that that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's why those casseroles are great. That's why they do those,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's just those things. And I think if we can be aware of it, have
Yeah.
these conversations with your friends and loved ones. Like
Yeah.
when you lose somebody, because we're all going to lose somebody unless we know nobody.
Right.
So we're all going to lose someone. How would you want to be support? What would be helpful? What would you find helpful if you
Yes.
found yourself so overcome with emotion? And some people will be like, just stay away from me.
Right.
Right? They just need their space. Someone else might say, you know what? I'm going to need a hug. I need hugs.
Yeah.
I thrive with that. And I need to be protected because when I go through things, I don't make the best decisions. So if we can have those conversations based on past experiences, even if we haven't
Yes.
lost someone we're super close to, well,
Yes.
maybe we can all do better in supporting that person when the time
Right.
comes. So like my
Right.
husband, I think of when he gets sick, and it was the same thing with losing his parents.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want the hugs and the touch and
Right.
the close
Right.
proximity. That's just not how
That's
he's wired. But
right.
can I do something for him? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not that, be right here,
Right.
uh,
I
smother
think
me.
that's really important to understand too, because and not to take offense.
Yes.
Say if I asked you, can I give you a hug? And you're like, that's not what I need. Not to take offense by that,
Yeah.
because we have to remember that's the person and
Mm.
they're the one grieving, and they're the one, they may not want you to stop by. If they say, please don't come by, don't
Yeah.
take offense to that. They're in the middle of grief, and it's a different animal. And especially if you've never dealt with it, you don't know what it's
Yeah.
like. I just remember I thought I needed people, and then I was like, no, everybody please leave so I can be alone with my tears.
Yeah. And I think what you just said is very important, that just like if anybody listening is familiar with the five love languages, the book, I totally can't
Yes.
think of the author's name, but
Gary
when you learn
Chapman.
the love languages, it is not about, yes, your own, but it's about the other person. Like when you love,
Yes.
how do they receive love? It's not about how you receive it, it's about how they receive it.
Right. Right.
So for example, me, I am physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
and so the hugs are a big deal.
Right.
My husband is not.
Right.
So if I'm going to show him love and I'm constantly wanting to hug him, because like early in our marriage, it was like I wanted a long hug. And he'd be like, love you.
He's
He
like,
was
good
done.
enough.
And I'm like, can you hug me longer?
Right.
And so my dad's joke with him, he's like, when because we always hug when we greet and when we leave each other's presence,
Right.
right? That's what our family does. And so my dad, when Eric would hug him, my dad would say, hug me long time.
To make him feel uncomfortable. That's hilarious.
Yes. My dad was so fun and he was
Oh
so
my
funny. But
gosh.
and that's the thing about, so I use that as an example because everybody can
Yes.
understand how they like to be loved. Even if they
Yes.
don't, check it out.
Yeah,
5lovelanguages.com, I
we'll
believe
put
is the
we're
website.
gonna put a link in the show notes because it's a invaluable book. It's Dr. Gary Chapman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
His name was back here. It just wasn't up here.
It's okay.
But yeah.
Between the two of us, we can figure it out. And then if not,
Yeah.
afterward, the internet.
Yeah. There
No,
you
we'll
go.
definitely put a link because it's worth checking out, because it helps you with your relationships in general. You
Yeah.
know, because you don't want to
Absolutely.
get offended. Some people don't want you to do things for them. Why? Because they're not acts of service. They don't want that.
Yes.
But
They
they'll
want gifts.
They want a gift or they
And
want
I
you to
like
hug
gifts.
them.
Maybe that's why I like the gift cards. So because after my dad passed, or after my mom passed, I should say, well, even after my dad too, it was like a year. I wasn't hardly cooking.
Yeah.
So gift cards were huge. And I love cooking, but I lost the desire to do it
Right.
because I was trying to deal with so much already.
Yeah.
So it's the same way with the love languages. When you understand this someone's love language, you know
Mm.
how to love them. So have conversations now. How would you like to be supported when you're going through something really hard? I
Yeah.
don't personally, I like quality time,
Yeah.
but I don't want a whole bunch quantity of people if I'm
Right.
dealing with something and wanting to process through something.
Yes.
So some people like, and then when somebody passes and you're responsible for all the arrangements, or you and maybe one other person,
Yeah.
there's a lot to deal with. So phone calls, please, not so much. I don't want my
Yeah.
phone ringing.
Yeah.
Text, I'll read, don't expect a response. And
Right.
sometimes even now I'm just like, sometimes
Yeah.
I've learned when I've reached capacity for the day.
Hey, that's the part of that listening to your body and then also others hopefully not taking too big of an offense of that because they know who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I remember the same thing. People were calling going, "What happened?" Especially when my sister-in-law passed away because she passed away of COVID.
Mhm.
And so by then at that time people were scared and
Yes.
wanting to know every detail so that they wouldn't get it. And I did not have the capacity. I said, "I cannot tell you the whole story." And I also don't want to repeat the story 20 times, you know?
Yes.
So that was hard and thankfully people understood that, but that was hard. But I also thought that seemed like a weird request to me. Like tell me the whole thing. I understand people are coming from fear. I understand
Yeah.
that. But
And
that
fear
seems
makes
like
us do weird stuff.
yes it does. And I thought that was a weird request when I'm in the middle of grieving. I don't know.
Yes.
It just was a little too much for me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because here's the thing, another takeaway is that be selfless.
Okay.
And so the person grieving, it's their process is
Mhm.
about them
Mhm.
and what they need to do to heal. It's not about anybody else.
Right.
And I guess it would be honor where they are and what they need.
There
And
you
that's
go.
why I say be selfless. Like the using the example with COVID is that
Yeah.
I'm scared for my life. I'm scared for myself. I need to know the answer. What happened? Well, that's
Right.
self-focused. But if
Right.
we're selfless, we're going to think about, wait a minute, she
Okay.
just lost her sister-in-law. She is
Right.
grieving.
Right. We can talk about this later, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you do? You've talked about some of them, but what kinds of things did you do that you felt like maybe some tips to help others? I definitely want to, put a link to help people if they want to reach out to Tina. Is she accessible to everybody?
Absolutely.
If anybody wants to try something like that. But what kinds of other things did you do to help you so far on your journey, where you're at right now?
Definitely paying attention to how I'm feeling, what's going on. Am I feeling stressed and anxious? Okay, why? What do I need? Do I need to take a step back from something?
Okay.
Really, like you mentioned, listen to my body. Do
Hmm.
I need a nap? I'm not really a napper, but there are times what you're going through is just tiring and exhausting, and
Yeah.
you need to take a nap.
Yeah.
Am I feeling super tired at night and making myself stay awake just, to get to a certain hour on the clock? Go to bed.
Go to
It's
bed.
okay.
It's okay. Even if it's light outside, just go to bed.
Yeah, it's okay. Go to bed. Then just to be very aware of what you need
Mhm.
and what you don't need. So for me, finally I got to a point to where, like I said, in January, I'm like, I'm staying in bed a couple hours. And what I didn't realize is that how I was eating, even if it wasn't super unhealthy, the
Uh-huh.
amounts, the timings, all those things, it affected me. And so I had to focus on my health. I'm like, my health
That's
is,
great. Right.
I've got to be healthy. Otherwise, how am I going to get better and move forward in a more stronger way? And once I did that, I got on a program, started
Hmm.
working with a health coach, which is how
Hmm.
I got into health coaching.
Hmm.
And it was like a week. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, wait, I feel something I haven't felt in a while. What is this? And I was at church, and I was really aware that something was really different.
Uh-huh.
And the pastor was talking, and then all of a sudden he said the word hope. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what it is. I have hope again. I have hope
Oh,
in regards to my health, but I also have hope that my future's getting better.
yes.
So
That's amazing.
it's it was for me what helped me continue with the healing and being able to do it in an energetic way was
Yes.
focusing on my nutrition and what was going in here and really learning. I thought I knew a lot, but you don't know what you don't know.
Nope, that's
And
right.
my friend was a health coach and she's like, girl, I can help you. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me think about it. And later I was like, what are you thinking about? You know, you need help.
That's right.
What are you doing?
That's right.
Hello.
No, exactly. Well, sometimes it takes a few times
Yeah.
before we
Yeah.
get
The
it.
list can be kind of thick sometimes.
That's right.
But I got myself in order, give myself a kick in the rear and
Yeah.
and made a different choice because I made the choice for me. Because
Yeah.
if I make the choice for me, now I can make better choices for my husband, better choices for our family, better choices in my businesses to help my clients. And
Yeah.
it has been, life has gone like this now, an upward trajectory.
That's amazing.
And it just keeps getting better. And is it perfect? No.
Right.
Is life ever going to be perfect? No, not while I'm in this body, I don't think.
That's right.
There's things that happen, but if we can make choices that, okay, what are our values? What
Right.
really truly at our core is important to us?
Mhm.
Okay, how do I make choices that align with that, that get me from where I am to where I want to be?
And what we want for our future, I would suppose.
Yes,
Do we want to
absolutely.
stay in this place, or or when you get that glimmer of hope, do we have that glimmer of hope, and then we can look to I there's more than this.
Yeah.
There's more than just being sad and feeling sluggish or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, the brain fog, all those things. It was so much making the grief worse, and I didn't even know it. So that's why it's important for me to share that part so
Yes.
that people are like, okay, if it's been a while since you've lost your loved one or experienced whatever loss it is, and
Right.
you're still having a really hard time, a couple of things to look at. One, do you need outside help from someone
Yes.
like Tina or a
Right.
counselor or a therapist?
Right.
Two, are you taking good care of yourself so that you can heal?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's where getting on a health program for me made a huge difference. I'm like, oh my goodness, if I'd only done this sooner, but mentally I wasn't in the place to do it sooner.
No.
And nobody was talking about it this way, right? That's why
Right.
I'm like, I gotta share this because
Yes.
it can make such a difference. If you don't want to feel down in the dumps and you want to feel better, do I still cry sometimes? Absolutely.
Of course.
Yes, I do. Things will trigger grief, and all of a sudden you just be like,
Right.
and I'll just go, I miss you, daddy.
Right.
I miss you, mama. I'll say it out loud and I'll feel it. And I think
Yeah.
that is an important tip to feel how you're feeling, acknowledge
Yes.
it. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Don't kick yourself like I shouldn't be feeling that way. I should be over this
Right.
by now. Who says you should be over it? And how
Right.
do you get over love?
Right.
Love
Exactly.
doesn't fade. Love doesn't go away.
Right.
It just looks different. So
Yeah.
now I've got to love my parents without being able to physically see them.
Right.
And so I just tell them, I love them. I don't know if they can hear me or not.
Right.
Some
Right.
people say, oh, they can hear you. Oh, they're always with you. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not in that realm. So I don't
But you
know.
feel good saying that and doing that
Yeah.
act,
Yeah.
you
Because
know.
it's acknowledging their importance in my life and it's
Yes.
acknowledging how I feel.
Yeah.
And when you feel something and process it, well, that's how you move forward.
Mhm.
If we shove it down, well, it's gonna pop out some
Oh,
way.
that is such a good point, really. Well, and then that can tie into the health, right? maybe we're maybe we're stuffing the feelings down with other
Yes.
things, and it's all a vicious cycle. So,
Yeah.
yes. So listen to our listen to our body.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, listen
Yes.
to your body, get outside help, put up some healthy boundaries so that you have the space to heal. And then
Yes.
four is journaling, and journaling can look different.
Yes.
And side note for people who like to give a lot of advice, unless somebody asks, don't give it. It's an irritation when someone's in the midst of something really emotional and heavy like
Yes.
grief. It's like, oh, do this, do that. Well, did I ask you?
Right.
Because now I'm listening to this place, I'm not receiving. that kind of thing in a
Right.
very healthy way, I would say. And it would irritate me. I can be honest, right, Laura?
Yes, you can.
It would be irritating. I'm like, how do you know I'm not doing that? Or that is what I'm doing. It just doesn't look like how you do it.
Or you may not have shared that you're doing it. But
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
things I heard somebody say was asking your friend, do you want to just vent or would you like some advice? Because sometimes your friends just want to vent.
Yeah.
Or do you want a solution or would you like me to just listen?
Yeah.
That's a nice thing I think to say. It's not always what I practice. I need to remember it, but
Right. We all do. That's why we're talking about it.
that's right. But sometimes when people are like, rah, 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 you want to offer advice and go, well, this is how you fix that problem. When maybe they just needed to gripe about it this time, and they're not even ready to hear. And if they didn't specifically ask you for tips,
Yeah.
that maybe they don't want the tips
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I will share that and show grace, extend grace. I mean, we got to do
Yeah.
it as the ones grieving, but those who are offering the advice and things, if somebody's like snaps at you, understand
Yeah.
they're in a hard place right now.
Yeah.
And it's just like an animal, not that we're not animals, but an animal that is like, say a cat gets its foot stuck between two rocks and you reach out to help it and it scratches you
Right.
because it's like, I'm trying to survive here
Right.
and get away. I'm hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with grief. We can scratch, right? We can,
Right.
yeah, not to call people catty either,
Right.
but it's just, we're just trying to survive at this
Right.
point. We're just trying
Right.
to survive. And so even well-meaning things when it comes in the form of advice, such as just lean into God. Well, how do you know I'm not? Just
Right.
trust God. How do you know I'm not? And
Yes.
so the advice can just be annoying. It can be like sandpaper on a wound because that's
Yes.
what it is. There's an open wound right now
Right.
that we're healing from. And it's not to like point the finger at anybody either, even though I just
Right.
did that. This is educational because I want us
Yeah.
all to have these conversations so that we can understand how can we better
Yeah.
honor and love the person that
Yes.
is going through it. And
Yes.
it's not like I have hard feelings against
Right.
anybody
Of
who offered
course.
advice. I'm sharing from a place of when I was there, you were annoying.
Oh my gosh. When I was there, yes. Yes, I know. It's so funny because I'll say, like, I don't understand why. I just want to say whatever I want to say. And my therapist says, you can, but you're not going to have any friends left.
Yeah.
So we have to weigh our options. Yes, we can't just
Yeah.
say anything. No,
Yeah.
but this is good advice because especially if anyone listening didn't know these things before,
Right.
now you have some new things in your arsenal to be
Yeah.
able when you have a friend going through grief or things. We just can't walk around thinking the world revolves around us and be offended if they snap at us. Oh my goodness, they just lost their parent or whatever and they might not be thinking straight. That doesn't mean we get to push people around, do whatever we want.
No.
But it's that
But
whole
from the
extending
outside,
grace.
yeah, from the outside. And when I say the outside, meaning you're not in my body, you're not in my
Yes.
heart, you're not in my thoughts, in my mind, you're not feeling the things that I feel. So you're on the outside
Yes.
of me.
Yes.
And it can look like, wow, why did she react like that? Or, well, I heard a little attitude in that. Yeah, yes, you did. There was
Yes,
some
you
attitude
did.
in that.
Yeah.
There was attitude because I'm in a place where everybody's been take, and it's like just pulling on me. And I'm
Yes.
like, okay, I'm stretched as far as I can go. I need it to stop so I can survive.
Right.
And so my answer is no.
Right. And
And
that's
it might not
okay.
sound good. It might come out like, no, no, uh-uh, no, what? No.
I
I'm like,
love
how
it.
many different ways can I say no with like a different attitude?
Lots of ways. I love it. And I love the facial expressions. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you got to go watch it on YouTube. So you can get some facial expressions. All right.
Yes.
So using our title, where are you at now? How are you doing?
Much better. And because I put those boundaries in place and I
Yes.
do journal. So for me, how my journaling looked is
Uh-huh.
I posted on Facebook. And so this is a couple of things, different things people said, well, you need a
Yeah.
journal. Well, I'm like, this is my journaling.
Yes.
And well, Facebook could delete it, it could disappear. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And so some posts I went in and I copied and pasted it into a document in Google Drive. So
Yes.
I have the history of it.
Right.
So that I can refer back to it, because I don't always remember how I felt at the moment, because
Right.
I'm healing, I'm moving
Yes.
forward, I'm growing. I'm always in a state of growth and maturity in every area. That's what I'm wearing green for growth.
Oh, love it.
But I always want to grow. So I'm not going to
Yes.
remember in 5 years from now how it felt then. So even sharing the story now, I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm sharing the story now. I'm glad I'm telling, because I want to stay in touch with those feelings.
Yes.
One, so that I know how to handle it better in the future, because we can always do better. Two, so that other people know how to handle it better for
Yes.
themselves. And three, so other people can better know how to support others
Yes. That's
when they're
perfect.
going through these things. So
Yeah.
one, you're not alone if you're grieving. You're not you're welcome to the
To
sisterhood
the
of grief, right?
suckiest club in the
Loss.
world.
Oh
Welcome
my
to
gosh,
the
I don't,
sucky club.
not a club we want everybody in, but we're all
No,
going to be in it at some
we
point. If we
are,
love
unfortunately.
people,
Yes.
if we love someone other than ourselves, we're going to find ourselves here,
Yeah.
and know that it's going to look different. Know that it's going to be a process, and know that you will heal and be able to move forward and live a vibrant, full life, and that you
Yes.
can make choices to support your healing.
That's perfect. Well, I think that's a great place to end. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing. That was just so good. So good. I really feel like that's going to help a lot of people.
I hope so.
Yeah, I really do. It was just, well, I just really thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Um, I always enjoy your company. I enjoy your storytelling. You're very good at it.
Oh, thank you. And
Thank you
thank you
for
for
taking,
laughing with me.
of course. Thank you. You know what? And that's another thing too, is that boy, I wasn't laughing at the beginning, but it's okay. I can laugh about it now. I can laugh
Yeah.
about my sister laying on the floor in Hobby Lobby and me walking around
Right.
her going, I got to get to these things, because
Yeah.
that's what she needed to do. It's okay. We laugh about it now. Um, but it's just hard. And so
Yeah.
it's okay. We said it all in this. Go back, take notes.
Yeah.
Know how you can support others and others can support you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I appreciate you so
Welcome.
much. And we'll have lots of resources for you guys on the show notes so
Yeah.
that you guys can have all the things you need. So that's it. And we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by.
And thank you.